in the air. I will say jacking this car up is a tedious process. It's something that you need to have full attention and focus on whenever you're jacking this car up. You need to make sure you have the right equipment, and you need to make sure you're taking your time. Those are the key things with this car. I showed you guys this car, I think in a video way back when, a few months ago, and the goal is to start featuring this vehicle in the channel, and you guys can basically just something to share with the community. As a reminder, please like, share, and subscribe. I recently hit a milestone of over 300 subscribers. So for me, I never expected this thing to really kind of grow. This is more just to share with people, share with the car community, but also document different points and progressions throughout various projects and just ownership of vehicles. So yeah, let's go over what I got going. So I use race ramps, and so far I've used this a couple times during oil changes on this and the Falcon. They're rated, I believe, at 1,500 pounds each. These are 12-inch high by 12-inch wide, concave. So as you can see, they snug the 305 front tire pretty nice, and the 345 on the rear. There's a little bulge, but not too big of a deal. One thing I recommend, because this car is so flat and so low, once you jack one side of the car up, if you jack the front right side of the car up, let's say front passenger side, the whole right side of the car is going to come up because the chassis is so stiff on this. The way I recommend jacking this car up, if you're going to have it sitting on the weight on wheels, is to do it left and right. Just kind of shimmy the car a few inches here, a few inches there. In order to do that, you're going to need a significant amount of ply boards. And so that's what I have here, just various amounts of ply board in order to get the car up. So that's pretty much it. It helps tremendously just to be able to shimmy the car left to right. So yeah, without further ado, we'll go over the oil changing process. Not really much to this. As you can see, this is just basically a bolt-on C7Z. It is a manual M7 car. It is on flex fuel. That DSX sensor right there, that is the goodness. No pulley, just literally a cold air intake, AFE. Cooks 2-inch headers, NGK plug, to a catless X pipe. So the book calls for 9.8 quarts. Of course, this is a Z, so it's got the dry sump. For typical street driving, they recommend 5W30. This is a 2016 model, and I believe in 17 GM switched over to the 040 weight oil. And so, but as you see, for when you can also run 1550 for track and competition use, and that's typically how I use the vehicle. So that's what I'll be running. We got here 15W50, 10 quarts of it. So I'll measure off 9.8 and get to getting it in there. And I got a stock of filters. When I go to the dealership, I will normally grab 5 filters each for the LT4 and the LSA. This way they don't see me every couple months. They see me once every couple years, if that. I try and stay away from the dealership. So not anything bad or against them, but I just rather do the majority of the stuff I can myself, and I'd rather just not be on their radar. All right, another thing, which most of you guys know, the any of the dry sump, whether it's the Grand Sport or Z51 Stingray or Z06 ZR1, you got the 2 drain plugs. So you got a front and rear drain plug, as well as the filter. Also, I normally pull the dry sump lines. So I believe it's a 13 or 14 millimeter. I pull these generally because what I generally end up finding is that I'll normally find like probably, I don't know, let's say a half a quart or so of oil in there every time I do an oil change. So anytime I'm doing an oil change, I'm pulling the dry sump lines. One thing about these lines is they are, as you see, they go in to the bosses or ports, probably about an inch in there. So when you pull them out, there's a little tension on these lines that run up to the surge tank. Make sure you pull them out straight, and when you go in, you go in straight. You don't want to nick or burr or do anything to mess up the fittings going into the actual pan. I generally knock out this the 15mm bolt next to the oil pan. I normally do that one first. Something that's going to hold all that. And there we are. This car is a flex fuel car. I know when running E85, they say it breaks down your oil lubricity faster than if you're running regular pump gas. But yeah, I can smell the ethanol. It just smells like almost like a alcohol or something like that. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but anyways, I'll do an inspection while I'm under here. So far, these O2 sensors, I did put some heat shielding around there. Shout out to DEI, they sent me a bunch of heat shielding when I bought this dry sump line heat jacket or whatever. They just sent me a bunch of it, so shout out to them for doing that. I actually used a lot of their stuff just to keep my car cool, and you know, it actually helped. So all right, I got the oil line jacket off, and you can see these run up to the surge tank and the supply side, and it just keeps, the idea of it is just to keep these lines cool, and you can see how close they are to the headers. So let me go ahead and get these lines out. All right, I got the two 13mm bolts out that hold these lines into the actual pan. So I'm gonna try and do this with one hand without nicking up the lines. Again, this is tedious, so just be careful that you're not scoring up these lines. So let me get in a better body position so I can get a real good grip on it. All right. Actually, I might need to use two hands. Yeah, let me use two hands and not be stubborn. There we go. As you can see, it's not a super lot of oil, but between the two of them, I'm normally eyeballing at least, I don't know, half a quart or so. You guys be the judge. You see that flowing down. So every time I do an oil change, I always pull those lines just because I want to try and get as much new or fresh oil in the system as possible. So at the same time, you got to kind of manhandle the lines further up. The further downstream you grab these lines, the easier they are to handle going back into the block or to the oil pan. That's just as simple as that. All right, got one in. All right, got two in. It's as simple as that. And again, always do this, always drain these lines. So always find about a half a quart or so in them, and just want to flush everything out of this system that I can. And once it comes time to torque them, you just do a little snug on it. Just a little snug. There's a crush washer, I believe like an aluminum crush washer between the port and the pan. And all you're doing is just getting a nice little crush on that. And you back up. Just put a little lube around the seal. Just a little dab of oil. That way it doesn't go on dry. That way when you get it up there, you can get a nice hand-tight torque on it. You're not trying to over torque this thing. Part number on this is PF48E. Go ahead and run your 15mm down, 15mm pan bolts down. Then you can go up top and commence to put 9.8 quarts in there. I normally will put 5 in, and then I'll wait and then I'll put the rest in. And again, with these, you're not trying to kill it. You're just a nice little snug on these. That's about it. That's it. And I just do a little wipe down. I didn't really make too much of a mess. Thankfully, I'm able to do this without being sloppy under here. Use my flashlight and do a little inspection. That is pretty much it. Take a look at these lines going into the pan. And then lastly but not least, I'll put the jacket or the heat shield over the oil lines going into the tank, or from the tank to the pan. And there you go, guys. That is pretty much all there is to it. You know, the main thing you want to do is inspect all your bolts. Make sure they're snug, torqued, but not over torqued. Your oil filter is nice and hand tight, and that's your lines, your oil lines going into the pan are nice and snug, but again, not over torqued. Like I said, I typically get down here and I inspect my O2 sensors and make sure that the headers aren't getting the best of them, and so far I've been lucky. You know, yeah, they're up out of the way. Again, as long as you can get them, you know, 3-4 inches away up on that torque tube off the X pipe, you're normally good. And after buttoning everything up, you can start filling. Again, I use the 15W50 competition track use oil, mainly because that is how I use the car. And again, I typically change the oil once it hits 60-50%, somewhere in there on the life cycle of it. I don't mess around, I just go ahead and change it. So, and after that, you're all done. That's all she wrote. Thanks for watching. I want to remind you guys to like, share, and subscribe. The next milestone for the channel is to try and get 500 subscribers. Again, I'm going to start bringing in the C7Z into the fold. Right now, my channel has a little bit of mixture of Ford Falcons, small block Fords, the Windsor engine family. But I am heavily in the LS game as well. So again, I got some friends here locally. Shout out to Outlaw Performance Garage. Shout out to CSM Racing Engines. Shout out to TOE Performance. And again, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.